Chapter 3182. About this. Yi Qing Luo's pupils rolled as she thought about how to explain. Then she heard Mo Ying's emotionless voice rang. You want to gather the 4 sacred beast pearls and you want to go to the upper realm, am I right? It was obviously a question. But when she said it, it was an extremely calm tone. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes trembled. She was somewhat shocked that Mo Ying actually knew the use of the 4 sacred beast pearls. But very quickly she understood. Mo Ying was the island sage of Godless Island. Although Godless Island was in Nirvana Realm's territory. But it was after all a place which had exceeded Nirvana Realm and existed in another plane. Mo Ying was clear about the use of the 4 sacred beast pearls was a very normal thing. She didn't deny it as she raised her eyes and looked at Mo Ying. You will help me keep this a secret, right? You want to abandon us. Mo Ying's emotionless face revealed a sliver of extremely shallow emotions. That stiff slender brows on her face started to knit together bit by bit. I'm not abandoning you. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as the hand which was placed on Mo Ying's shoulder slightly exerted force. I have my reasons to go to the upper realm and I also believe that my brothers are able to head to the upper realm. Mo Ying's empty beautiful eyes fixed on Yi Qing Luo's. It's very difficult. Yi Qing Luo understood the meaning in her words. The brothers in the world group had gone through this period of training and their abilities had indeed improved very quickly. But if they were to head to the upper realm? To them it was extremely difficult. Even she herself. She who had all sorts of cheats, needed to rely on the 4 sacred beast pearls to head to the upper realm, not to mention the brothers in the world group. Actually, I've already thought about it, but... Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath. After we gather the 4 sacred beast pearls and open the transportation door to the upper realm, I will personally tell everyone. She paused as her hands placed on Mo Ying's shoulders as she looked at Mo Ying seriously. I will first head to the upper realm to scout and by then I will give my brothers 3 months' time. If anyone's profound grade is able to reach sky profound grade within these 3 months, I will bring him to the upper realm. Then I can go with you right now. Mo Ying said woodenly. Yi Qing Luo rubbed her head. You can't go, you're Godless Island's island sage. With you around, Godless Island wouldn't dare to act rashly. Mo Ying pursed her lips, not saying a word. Don't forget, Godless Island and Gloomy Palace are also working together. Yi Qing Luo pinched her little face. It's because I trust you that I hand my brothers over to you for protection. If you stay behind to protect them, then I can go to the upper realm with peace of mind, isn't it? Yu Ming, Yuan, Ghost Hand 5 Nether and the others had also worked with Godless Island before. Previously, Godless Island's previous young island master island Lord Island Yi Gan had purposely disguised as xuanhuan and mixed in with the world group. This was controlled by Ghost Hand 5 Nether. Now Mo Ying's identity as the island sage had been exposed. As for Godless Island, even if he wanted to make a move he would have to go through Mo Ying. Then I'll stay. Mo Ying stiffened her neck and nodded. Following that, she used that pair of emotionless beautiful eyes to stare straight at Yi Qing Luo. Speaking of Gloomy Palace, will you really help East Continent unconditionally? Don't forget, in North Continent, during Sect Master Yin's birthday banquet, Lanling Nua had Yuhan as her personal guard. East Continent had a high possibility of working together with Ghost Hand 5 Nether. Chapter 3183. Lanling Nua is working with Yuhan. This point Yi Qing Luo could confirm. If the East Wave Sovereign was truly working with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness, he wouldn't have personally come to the South Wave Continent to beg her when the people of the South Wave Continent were in dire straits. His performance could not be faked. As for Lanling Nua, he was just a chess piece of the Nether Palace. Do you want to kill her? Mo Ying said word by word. No need. Yi Qing Luo shook her head. Let Peach send someone to keep an eye on her. If Lanling Nua still doesn't learn to be obedient, then there's no need to be soft-hearted. After all, if the East Wave Sovereign really gave her the Green Dragon Pearl, it would be impossible for her to do so. In exchange for Lanling Nua's life, it was not impossible. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she revealed a radiant smile. Both her arms were wrapped around Mo Ying's neck as she bent down slightly to look at Mo Ying at the same level. Alright little shadow, don't think too much. Counter soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. You must believe in your sister Qing Luo's ability. Mo Ying stared at her and frowned. It's not elder sister. I'm older than you. Yi Qing Luo pinched her face. I'm 17. Mo Ying said each word slowly. Yi Qing Luo, with this Lolita face it was really hard to tell her age. On the outside, Mo Ying looked like a 12 to 13-year-old girl. 17. She was only 15. Yiqing Luo silently turned her head away and changed the topic. Let's go take a look at our brothers. I wonder if Xian is back yet. Time passed and soon night fell. Mo Xian had yet to return. Yiqing Luo stood at the entrance of the inn, her slender brows knitted into a bundle. Although he was very confident in Mo Xian's strength. However, he couldn't help but feel anxious in his heart. She gripped her glowing fan tightly. All along, did Xian watch her fight with this kind of emotion? No. At that time, Xian must have been even more flustered than she was now. Xian's strength was unparalleled. As for her, his strength was far less than 1/10 of Xian's. Are you still waiting for His Majesty? Tang Beiyuan walked up from behind. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at her and looked towards the direction of the city gate. He didn't mention when he would be back? No. Tang Beiyuan walked to her side and patted her shoulder gently. Don't worry, Dizun will be fine. Yiqing Luo's hands were clasped together, her slender fingers intertwined. He clenched his fists so tightly that his fingertips turned white. I know, I just can't control my worry. Yiqing Luo sighed softly. Xian is very powerful, but the Palace of Gloom is too sinister and cunning. I'm afraid they will use underhanded means. I won't. Tang Beiyuan pointed at the profound phoenix ring on her finger. As long as the Dizun is in the Nirvana realm, the profound phoenix ring will react if he is tricked. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes as her fingertips gently touched the profound phoenix ring. The profound phoenix ring was still as calm as ever. There was no sign of anything happening. She clenched her hands. Yes. Do you want to take a rest first? When His Majesty returns, he will definitely go to your room to see you first, Tang Beiyuan said. Yiqing Luo shook her head. I want to wait for him. Tang Beiyuan's eyes were filled with envy as the smile on her lips became gentler. I'm obviously here to comfort you. Why am I being fed a mouthful of dog food out of nowhere? Chapter 3184. Yiqing Luo continued to stand at the entrance. Yan Shaoyi brought over a wooden chair with a backrest and carried it to the entrance. Don't stand there in a daze, go sit at one side. Saying that, she placed the wooden chair behind the door on the right side of the inn. Don't you know that you're now the worship target of the soldiers? How much pressure do you have to stand at the entrance? Yiqing Luo. Standing at the entrance could give them pressure? Yan Shaoyi pulled her and pressed her onto the wooden chair. Your imposing manner is too strong, not to mention the soldiers, even I am afraid. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at her. This tone, this action of pulling her onto the wooden chair without any explanation. She really couldn't tell that Yan Shaoyi was a little afraid of her. Just wait here slowly, I won't comfort you. Yan Shaoyi smiled as she patted Yiqing Luo's shoulder. I've seen the outcome of Beiyuan consoling you. Although I have slut gene, but in terms of PDA skills, I'm not as good as you, so I won't seek abuse. Saying that, Yan Shaoyi waved her hand and entered the inn. Yiqing Luo. Plastic Brotherhood. But it was because of Tang Beiyuan and Yan Shaoyi, this gentle and overbearing concern, which made Yiqing Luo's mood relaxed. She leaned against the chair, not knowing how long she had waited. It was until a tall and burly figure walked out from the inn, breaking the silence. Imperial Madam. Grand General cupped his hands towards her. Sovereign would like to invite you to the backyard for a gathering. Backyard? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Sovereign Gu hasn't left yet? Grand General replied. Sovereign had already left in the afternoon and just rushed over, asking me to look for Imperial Madam. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Could it be? Was he going to give her a reply regarding the Azure Dragon Pearl? Yiqing Luo stood up. I'll go over now. She took a look at the direction of the city gate. Following that, she retracted her gaze and strode into the inn. Yan Shaoyi was nestled in Xiao Jin's arms, sitting by the counter, grinding the medicinal herbs. Hearing that, Yan Shaoyi raised her eyes and smiled. Not waiting for the overlord? Wait for me, I'll be right back. Yiqing Luo said and walked towards the backyard. Behind him, Yan Shaoyi's ridiculing voice could be faintly heard. Can you even substitute for waiting for your own man? Aren't you afraid that my slut Jean will be jealous? I'm not jealous, I'm not jealous. I'll wait with you. Yiqing Luo, damn it. Showing off to dogs. Yiqing Luo expressed that she couldn't hear anything as she walked into the backyard and isolated their voices behind her ears. He stepped into the backyard and walked for a while. Gu Ming was sitting at the original place, and when he saw Yiqing Luo coming, he immediately stood up to welcome her. Yiqing Luo's vision fell onto another figure. The person sitting beside Gu Ming was not the East Wave sovereign that he had seen in the afternoon. Instead, it was another person who was obviously plump. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows and looked at Gu Ming in confusion. Gu Ming hurriedly welcomed Yiqing Luo over. Miss Yi, this is the sect master of East Continent's Jade Dome sect, Hao Nanren, Brother Hao. The East Wave sovereign has already told Brother Hao about Lady Knight's request today. Brother Hao wishes to personally meet Lady Knight and discuss the cooperation with her. Hao Nanren? This name. Really elegant and refined. But, looking at the green circles under his eyes, he was obviously a cultivator but his legs were weak. This was obviously excessive. How was this a good man? He was more like a scum. Chapter 3185. Gu Ming smiled. Brother Hao, this is West Continent's heroine, Three Springs Sect 7th Miss Yiqing Luo. Three Springs Sect. Hao Nanren's face sunk slightly as he squinted his eyes, filled with suspicion. I have heard rumors about Yiqing Luo, but rumors are after all rumors. When Gu Ming heard this, the expression on his face immediately changed. He was about to stop him. But Hao Nanren interrupted. Yiqing Luo looks like she's only 14 or 15 years old. Can she really defeat the secluded palace and deal with the monsters sent by them? As he said that, he looked towards Gu Ming. Brother Gu, have you been cheated? Brother Hao. Gu Ming's face turned steely as he shouted at Hao Nanren. What do you mean? You said you want to see the expert who can save South Continent. If you don't want Yiqing Luo to help East Continent, then please leave. Gu Ming was really annoyed. Hao Nanren then restrained the arrogance on his face as he smiled and put his hand on Gu Ming's shoulder. This is also a reasonable guess. This lady looks so young, how do you expect me to believe? Hao Nanren hadn't finished his words. Suddenly he let out a short shriek. Gu Ming only felt a gust of cold wind on his cheek. Then he saw Hao Nanren, who had his arm around his shoulder just a moment ago, suddenly fly backward. A remnant wave of profound energy stayed by his side. Gu Ming's forehead was filled with cold sweat. He didn't need to guess to know. This was definitely Yiqing Luo's doing. This speed. Neither of the two of them had noticed it. In fact, they had even managed to react to it. Especially, Hao Nanren was at least 70 to 80 kilograms. But he was easily thrown to the ground by Yiqing Luo. Bang. It hurts. Hao Nanren sat on the ground, the fats on his body were trembling. His features were twisted in pain as he stared at Yiqing Luo malevolently. You slut, how dare you hit me? Hao Nanren's voice just ended. In front of him, an afterimage suddenly floated. That plump neck was tightly gripped by a slender fair hand. That finger was ice-cold and bone-chilling. He even used a bit of strength. Hao Nanren struggled for a while, but he couldn't break free from the grip of these hands. Missy, please have mercy, have mercy. Gu Ming immediately pleaded and rushed forward. Brother Hao. Ahem, the sect master of the Jade Dome sect is just. Gu Ming racked his brains to think of an excuse for Hao Nanren. Even the way Gu Ming addressed Hao Nanren had changed. He was indirectly distancing himself from Hao Nanren. Hao Nanren wanted to die. He didn't want to. The South Water Continent still needed Miss Yi and Di Zun's help. Naturally it was impossible to offend Yiqing Luo because of Hao Nanren. Hao Nanren was so scared that his face turned pale as he trembled and stared at Yiqing Luo. You, let go of me. Do you know who I am? I don't care who you are. Yiqing Luo didn't think much of it and lowered her gaze slightly. Hao Nanren's eyes widened as he stared at her beautiful face. Hao Nanren was so mesmerized by this beauty that he lost his soul for a moment. But a burst of intense pain on his neck made him regain his senses. He spoke in a hoarse voice. Don't you want the Azure Dragon Pearl if you dare to kill me? You will never get the Azure Dragon Pearl for the rest of your life. Dong. A sound of a heavy object landing on the ground was heard. Hao Nanren's plump body landed heavily on the ground. He sat on the ground on his butt. Chapter 3186. Hao Nanren grimaced in pain. His entire face looked extremely comical. He angrily stood up from the ground and looked extremely embarrassed. Little bitch. Let me tell you, you can forget about getting the Azure Dragon Pearl from me. The anger in Hao Nanren's heart was surging up. Damn little slut. She was the one who begged him for the heirloom treasure of the Jade Dome sect. How dare they treat him like this? Initially he was still thinking that such a beautiful young lady, if she was willing to spend a night with him. Moreover, the monarch had made a promise. It was not impossible for him to lend the Azure Dragon Pearl to this girl. But this girl really didn't know what was good for her. Hao Nanren clenched his fists, turned around and walked away. There's no room for negotiation. Brother Hao. Jade Dome sect master. Gu Ming hurriedly went up to stop him as he looked at Yiqing Luo awkwardly. Young Miss Yi, please don't be calculative, I'll go and stop him right now. No need. Yiqing Luo lightly spat out 2 words. He successfully stopped Gu Ming's footsteps. It also stopped Hao Nanren in his tracks. Hao Nanren clutched his neck as he looked at Yiqing Luo with a steely green expression. Not stopping him? Did she really not want the Azure Dragon Pearl anymore? Gu Ming thought so too. He hurriedly said, Miss Yi, the sect master of the Jade Dome sect has no ill intentions. He just hasn't seen you before, so he doesn't know your strength. Yiqing Luo raised her brows slightly, her long and narrow eyes hooked into a slender arc. Never seen before? You don't know? Could it be that the sect master of the Jade Dome sect didn't know the cause and effect from you and the East Wave Sovereign before coming? All of Gu Ming's words were stuck in his throat. He could not refute that. Yiqing Luo continued to laugh lightly. Since Jade Dome sect's sovereign is willing to rush over from East Tide Continent to South Tide Continent, then you naturally understand the implications and consequences of this matter. But Jade Dome sect's sovereign still doubted my ability. Then isn't this considered as doubting your and East Tide Monarch's foresight? Gu Ming's mouth moved, but he couldn't say a word. If Jade Dome sect's sect master wishes to leave, then scram on your own. Yiqing Luo looked askance at Hao Nanren with a smile which didn't look like a smile, but in between her brows, there was a chilly intent. Hao Nanren was so angry that his face turned pale. Arrogant. He was too arrogant. Did she really think of herself as a savior? Beg her? Dream on. Hao Nanren was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He strode towards the back door of the backyard. Gu Ming's face was in a dilemma. His vision kept shifting between Yiqing Luo and Hao Nanren, as he anxiously walked back and forth. Hao Nanren's figure was about to disappear around the corner. Gu Ming slapped his arm and chased after him. Brother Hao, don't be so impulsive. You came all the way here from the East Billow continent because you believed me in the East Billow sovereign, right? What are you doing now? Gu Ming persuaded him with kind words. Hao Nanren was stopped and thought that it was Yiqing Luo who hinted Gu Ming to chase up. He became even more confident and the expression on his face became even more arrogant. I'm here to give you and the sovereign face. That little bitch is so arrogant. She doesn't even put us 2 sect masters in her eyes. Right now what she wants is our sacred beast orb. Who knows, in the future she might even want the position of our sect master. Gu Ming's lips twitched. The East Billow sovereign had personally said that he wanted to offer the position of East Billow continent's monarch directly to Yiqing Luo, but was rejected by her. Although the status of the 4 great sects as compared to the royal family was much higher. Chapter 3187. Brother Hao. Gu Ming took a deep breath and did not continue to dissuade him. His voice sank. You really don't want to cooperate? Hao Nanren was sensitive to Gu Ming's emotional changes. His fat face trembled. His eyes narrowed into slits, concealing the scheming in his eyes. Since he was willing to come to the South Billow continent, he naturally had the intention to cooperate. If the East Wave Sovereign agreed to his requests, the Jade Dome sect would become the #1 force in the East Wave continent. The East Water royal family was no longer able to contain the Jade Dome sect. As for the Azure Dragon Pearl, although it was the heirloom of the Jade Dome sect, it was not a treasure. But after all, no one knew what it was for. It was better to lend it out for a period of time in exchange for the future of the Jade Dome sect. At that time, he was not afraid that he would not be able to get the Azure Dragon Pearl back after lending it out. But Yiqing Luo's attitude made him unable to lower his face. To Hao Nanren's knowledge, he felt that Yiqing Luo had asked the East Wave Monarch to beg him. It was Yiqing Luo who wanted the Green Dragon Pearl. That Yiqing Luo should lower her voice. Or she should pay something to gain his favor. Hao Nanren put on a straight face as his brows creased tightly and his suspicious gaze shot towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Brother Gu, you trust her so much? How could a little girl like her deal with monsters from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness? Against the entire Palace of Gloomy Darkness? Also, who can be sure that the next target of the secluded Darkness Palace will be the East Continent? This sentence successfully made Gu Ming's face darken. As it turned out, if secluded Darkness Palace's target really wasn't the East Wave Continent, was Hao Nanren going to sit back and do nothing? Was he going to allow the Netherworld Palace to annex the South Waves continent? Hao Nanren still didn't know what was wrong with his words. He continued to sneer. If the Palace of Gloomy Darkness doesn't attack the East Continent, wouldn't my Green Dragon Pearl be wasted? Besides, What if she can't deal with the monsters from the Palace of Darkness at all? Wouldn't I lose more than I gain? Xuanhuan didn't know what was good for him, and his words were getting more and more outrageous. Gu Ming's face darkened. As for Xuanhuan, he had no intention of befriending him. Such a short-sighted and selfish sect master. Sooner or later, the East Water continent would be destroyed in his hands. Make friends with Xuanhuan. Who knows, it would also harm the Wind Valley sect. Brother Gu, for the sake of the fact that we are both sect masters, I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't try anything you can find in a desperate situation and place all your hopes on a little girl. Xuanhuan sneered, you might as well beg me instead of a little girl. Who knows, my Jade Dome sect might even be able to help you defeat the Gloomy Palace. Xuanhuan's words completely destroyed the relationship between him and Gu Ming. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He originally wanted to say that the powerhouse behind Yiqing Luo was the Imperial Palace. Now it seemed that it was better not to say it. Since the sect master of the Jade Dome sect doesn't want to cooperate with Lady Yi, I won't force you. Gu Ming's face was ice cold as he lightly said, I still have something to discuss with Miss Yi, so I won't keep you any longer. With that, Gu Ming turned around and left. Xuanhuan was startled and his eyes widened. Brother Gu, what do you mean? Gu Ming didn't even turn his head. Take care, I won't see you off. Good. Xuanhuan's face turned gloomy as his chest heaved up and down violently. You insist on being on the same side as that little slut. I'm telling you, don't regret it. Chapter 3188. After a round of scolding. Gu Ming didn't even turn his head back as he walked straight ahead. Good Gu Ming, I call you Brother Gu, that's giving you face. Just based on the current situation in South Continent. Your so-called Wind Valley sect is already dead in name. Do you really think you're somebody? I'll see how you get killed by those bunch of monsters from Secluded Palace. I'll see how you push South Continent towards destruction. Gu Ming roared at the top of his voice. That voice could be heard by everyone in the backyard. Yiqing Luo naturally heard it clearly. But even if Xuanhuan didn't intentionally increase his tone, as a profound cultivator, she could hear their conversation from the start to the end. After all, those two didn't have any intention to hide anything. Furthermore, Xuanhuan was obviously doing it on purpose, to let Yiqing Luo hear his scolding. This was also to pass on to Yiqing Luo the matter of him and Gu Ming's talks falling apart. Xuanhuan thought that Yiqing Luo was determined to get his Azure Dragon Pearl, so naturally she couldn't bear for him to leave. Now that Gu Ming and his talks had fallen apart, Yiqing Luo would definitely come over to salvage the situation. Xuanhuan had already calculated in his heart. As long as Yiqing Luo showed weakness, he would be merciful and forgive her. But Gu Ming dared to give him that attitude. Yiqing Luo wanted the Azure Dragon Pearl, then she could not cooperate with Gu Ming. He, the sect master of Jade Sky sect and the sect master of Wind Valley sect who was about to perish. Anyone would know that they should choose to cooperate. Xuanhuan was full of confidence as he looked at Gu Ming's back view. His eyes were filled with malicious intent. How would Gu Ming not understand Xuanhuan's intention? His straight back had a moment of stiffness. The expression on his face had some changes. Sect Master Gu. Yiqing Luo's melodious voice rang, interrupting Gu Ming's slightly stunned emotions. Gu Ming raised his eyes and took a look at Yiqing Luo. His heart suddenly tightened as he walked over. Miss Yi, I'm sorry. I couldn't make him stay. Yiqing Luo's narrow long eyes were frivolous as she smiled warmly. I didn't ask you to make him stay. Gu Ming looked up in astonishment. I don't like to force things. Since he doesn't want to cooperate with me, then forget it. Yiqing Luo smiled disapprovingly. But Gu Ming frowned and said hesitantly, how are we going to explain to the East Wave Sovereign? Does Miss Yi really not want that Azure Dragon Pearl anymore? When Gu Ming asked this question, his expression changed. Far away at the corner, Xuanhuan's eyes lit up as he waited for Yiqing Luo to give him a way out. But the next moment, the young girl's clear and sweet voice, which was like a pearl falling on a plate, entered his ears at a steady pace. Yes, of course. She paused. The smile on Xuanhuan's face widened. He was already in position with his hands behind his back and his big belly sticking out. Then the young girl's voice sounded again. However, I will wait for him to offer up the Azure Dragon Pearl with both hands and cry for me to save him. Xuanhuan's arrogant smile froze on his face. Bit by bit, it became gloomy and dark. His eyes shot out an ominous glint as he stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Cry and beg you? Dream on. Yiqing Luo slowly raised her head. Tens of meters away, Yiqing Luo's chilly gaze was like a bone-piercing cold sharp blade, fiercely slicing onto Hao Nanren's body. The corners of her mouth curled up into an extremely faint but extremely evil smile. She just stared straight at Hao Nanren. Chapter 3189. Hao Nanren was so angry that his face turned green. He flicked his sleeve. The fat on his body shook as he walked towards the corner. After turning the corner, he deliberately slowed down his pace. With the speed of a tortoise, he moved about a dozen steps. He still hadn't heard Yiqing Luo's flustered intention of rushing over to stop him. It was only then that Hao Nanren believed Yiqing Luo really didn't want his cooperation. It was also true that he had no intention of keeping him. No matter how Hao Nanren felt in his heart, he wanted to turn back and pass the Azure Dragon Pearl to Yiqing Luo. But his dignity as the sect master of the Jade Dome sect would never allow him to lower his head to a little girl who was still wet behind the ears. Sooner or later they would regret offending him. Hao Nanren clenched his fists and left without looking back. Beside the stone table in the backyard, Yiqing Luo's ears moved slightly. She was sure that Hao Nanren's footsteps were far away. Only then did she fix her gaze on Gu Ming. "Miss Yi." Gu Ming looked guilty and said, "I'm sorry for making things difficult for you." "Don't worry." Yiqing Luo waved her hand. "You don't have to take this matter to heart. The reason why he's so proud and complacent now is because he hasn't suffered any pain or setbacks." As she spoke, the corners of her lips curled upwards, looking extremely devilish. "I don't need a month's time. He will be crying and begging me. However, at that time, it won't be as simple as a green dragon pearl." Gu Ming was startled. The scene of the South Tide continent being plunged into misery and suffering instantly appeared in his mind. He understood the meaning behind Yiqing Luo's words. If it was him instead. If it wasn't for the fact that the South Waves continent had already been reduced to a scene of misery and suffering, with only Valley Wind City still standing guard. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to so easily. He took out the Vermilion Bird Pearl and made a deal with Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo wanted to wait till the East continent was also invaded by the secluded palace. And at that time, Hao Nanren had a taste of what those monsters had brought. He would definitely regret it. Seeking help from Yiqing Luo. In other words, did Yiqing Luo really intend to not help East continent anymore? Gu Ming really wanted to ask. But upon seeing Yiqing Luo's pair of raised eyes, all his words were stuck in his throat. This was what was known as an aura. Yiqing Luo saw through Gu Ming's thoughts with just one look. The smile on her face deepened. Her long and narrow eyes curved into a demonic posture. "Sect Master Gu, you should rest early. Who knows? The people from the Palace of Seclusion might launch a surprise attack. You are the spiritual pillar of the soldiers, and you are also the only person in the South Tide continent who can shoulder great responsibilities. Don't let these insignificant matters affect you." Gu Ming cupped his hands and nodded. After settling the matters here, Yiqing Luo only wanted to hurry to the door and wait for DMO Xian's return. He had only taken a few steps. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something. She stopped, came back to her senses and looked at Gu Ming. "By the way, Lord Gu, may I ask, where is your son Gu Jingyu Gu?" At the mention of Gu Jingyu, Gu Ming's complexion changed slightly. When Tang Beiyuan, the master of the Imperial Palace's refining hall, who was also Di Zun's right-hand man, brought Gu Jingyu back to the Wind Valley sect, Gu Ming had already understood most of the situation. His son, trying to snatch Di Zun's woman. The Overlord's woman? Wasn't it Yiqing Luo? Chapter 3190. Gu Ming's tone was sincere. But in his words, it was obvious that he was worried about Gu Jingyu. He was afraid that Yiqing Luo would be infuriated because of Gu Jingyu and wanted to teach him a lesson. "Sect Master Gu need not be nervous. Young Master Gu is considered as my savior, and if we can be friends, I will be very happy." Yiqing Luo smiled. "Help me send my regards to young Master Gu." After that, she waved her hand and left the rear courtyard. Stepping into the main hall, he saw Yan Xiaoyi looking around with a shifty look on her face. After seeing Yiqing, Yan Xiaoyi's brows rose as she laughed in ridicule. "Qing Luo, why is Sect Master Gu looking for you? The smile, why does it look kind of creepy? Just say what you want to say, don't use this kind of expression to look at me." Yiqing Luo flipped her hand and knocked lightly on Yan Xiaoyi's head. Yan Xiaoyi hugged her head and took a few steps back. On his face there was still that sneaky smile. "Qing Luo, what did you and Sect Master Gu discuss about? Did you ask him about young Master Gu?" Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased. Looking at Yan Xiaoyi's increasingly crafty smile, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. A thought flashed through his mind. Could it be such a coincidence? Yiqing Luo was about to turn around. Suddenly a cool breeze blew toward him. The cool breeze was mixed with the elegant scent of sandalwood, seeping into the nose. Yiqing Luo's heart, which was still feeling lucky, suddenly sunk. *CK. It was true, what a coincidence. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to turn the escape plan in her mind into reality. A strong and powerful arm wrapped around her slender waist. His slender and fair palm grasped her abdomen and suddenly exerted force. Yiqing Luo's petite body was brought into a broad embrace. In front of Yiqing Luo's eyes, she was only able to catch a glimpse of a piece of shimmering purple flowing cloud, like a light cloud passing by. That elegant sandalwood fragrance was getting thicker and thicker in the air. Her heart was perturbed. Vaguely he felt a little excited. It's him, Dmo Xian was back. He came back safely. Little Luo, haven't you been bitterly waiting for my return? Why do you want to run away the moment you see me? Beside her ears was a man's mellow and husky voice, very charming. Her voice was clearly gentle. But Yiqing Luo could tell that under that gentleness, there was a faint intention to settle scores. Yiqing Luo's hand was placed on the back of the man's hand, secretly exerting strength, trying to pry open the man's hand around her waist, while giving a dry laugh. How could it be? When did I want to escape? As she spoke, she glared at Xianxia. It must be this lass who had told him about her sitting at the entrance waiting for Dmo Xian. Xianxia blinked her beautiful eyes innocently. Why are you glaring at me? You were indeed waiting for the overlord to come back. You were sitting at the entrance of the inn like a stone gazing at your husband. You're still talking. Yiqing Luo was exasperated as she gritted her teeth. Xianxia, do you feel that you don't have any dirt on you and want me to tell Jinzi? Xianxia looked at the roof and shook her head as she walked. The sun is really big today, I'm going out to bask in the sun. Looking at Xianxia's departing back view, Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly. Bask in the sun for what? It's nighttime now. How's nighttime? Can you be more attentive in finding excuses? But Yiqing Luo was filled with the impulse to beat Xianxia up, but it was suppressed by the faint chill emitted from the man behind her. The man's hand tightened even more. Chapter 3191. Lil Luo, you've waited for me for so long? It's been hard on you. He pressed his lips against the back of her neck. The girl's skin turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. The surrounding soldiers who were recuperating turned their heads and pretended not to see anything. However, from the corners of their eyes, they stole glances at him. It was very obvious. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat and continued to laugh dryly. Xian, it's been hard on you. You've been running around outside for an entire day, you must be tired. Hurry back to your room to rest. As she spoke, she used all her strength to pry open the hand on her waist. This time it was easy. He only used a little bit of force. The man's large palm had already left Yiqing Luo's waist. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly as she speedily moved her body, trying to escape. But in the next instant, she felt her body lighten. Then his feet hovered in the air. She was firmly held in Dmo Xian's arms. Lil Luo is right. We should return to our room and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo. What she said was obviously to let him go back to his room to rest. Wasn't he going to bring her along? However, no matter how Yiqing Luo struggled in her heart to reject. In the end, she was still unable to resist and was brought back to the room by Dmo Xian. As soon as the door to their room was closed, the entire hall was filled with laughter. It was said that D Zun and D Madam loved each other very much. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, it was indeed so. However, in this relaxed and joyful atmosphere, no one noticed. The few of them who were recuperating by the corner stared at the direction of Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's room. The expressions on their faces were cold and solemn. The door was slammed shut with a pa sound. Yiqing Luo struggled in his arms. Dmo Xian, don't mess around. Let's talk business, talk business. Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up slightly, his long and narrow peach blossom eyes drooped down, revealing an indescribable devilish charm. I'm talking business with you right now. He circled around her and slowly walked to the bed. Yiqing Luo saw that bed and her cheeks flushed red. What kind of proper business is this? Dmo Xian's smile became even more alluring. He slowly sat on the edge of the bed. His long, slender legs were under the bed. Then, he placed the girl in his arms on his lap. His two hands were still tightly encircling her. This posture. Yiqing Luo was facing Dmo Xian and could clearly see his expression. Yiqing Luo hooked his shoulder with one hand, maintaining her body's balance. Little Luo'er's heart is still thinking about that young master from Wind Valley sect? Dmo Xian lifted her chin as he asked with a soft chuckle. That laughter was obviously very gloomy. Yiqing Luo's expression stiffened. You really heard the conversation between her and Gu Ming? What a coincidence. He didn't ask Gu Ming about Gu Jingyu's situation in the morning. He didn't ask in the afternoon either. Why did she have to be caught red-handed by Dmo Xian when she asked at night? Could they still play happily? One had to know, the man was jealous. That was simply childish to the point of being unable to be ridiculed. Not speaking? Don't tell me, you're feeling guilty? The man's voice became deeper and deeper. It was so low that Yiqing Luo's little heart was thumping heavily along with every word he said. Guilty my ass. Yiqing Luo flung away the man's fingers, raised her head and bit his chin fiercely. What's so good about being jealous of an unimportant person? Chapter 3192. I don't care about him. Yiqing Luo shrank back when she saw the man's gloomy expression. After all, you asked Beiyuan to personally send him back to the Wind Valley sect. This isn't an honor for the Wind Valley sect, it's a disaster. I really admire Sect Master Gu's character, so I just want to ask him what he thinks about Gu Jingyu, and if it will affect my cooperation with him. Yiqing Luo explained and widened her eyes. This has nothing to do with caring about him. Dmo Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes. I don't care, anyway I'm not happy when you mention him. Yiqing Luo. Is it really good for you to behave like a little kid who didn't get any candy? Your Dmo Xian's moral integrity has dropped to the ground, is it really good? Lil Luo, made me unhappy, should I punish Lil Luo? The man's husky voice was so sexy that it made one's heart feel as if there was a feather constantly teasing it. Yiqing Luo heard the danger in the man's tone. Her petite body moved back to hide. Suddenly her waist tightened. The male pheromone's breath hit her in the face. He sealed his lips with hers. That domineering energy, leaving Yiqing Luo nowhere to escape. To put it bluntly, Dmo Xian's childish tantrum was to find an open and above-board excuse to do such things to her. Not knowing how long had passed, Yiqing Luo was already in a daze from the kiss. Her eyes were half open and somewhat dazed. It was until the man's satisfied deep laughter floated down from the top of her head that Yiqing Luo regained her senses. Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo flew into a rage out of humiliation and punched the man's face. It was just that her strength had been drained from her body, so when she swung it down, her strength was also very weak. It was totally tickling. Dmo Xian held the little hand that was violently on his face and brought it to his lips as he kissed it gently. Lil Luo, still want it? Why not invite me? Dmo Xian's husky voice was full of magnetism. Yiqing Luo stared at him angrily. Want your head? Dmo Xian was very cooperative as he directly stuffed his head into Yiqing Luo's neck. My head, my heart, my body, all belong to you. Yiqing Luo. Immediately following that, Dmo Xian added another sentence. So, Lil Luo, do you want to check these things that belong to you? Inspection. Stripping for inspection? Was there a need to act like a hooligan with a straight face? Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and her slender fingers pinched Dmo Xian's head, which was resting on her shoulder. Get lost. After she was done, Yiqing Luo moved her shoulders and flung the man's head away. Dmo Xian felt aggrieved as his shimmering peach blossom eyes pretended to put on a pitiful look as he gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo. His voice was deliberately low and magnetic. Lil Luo, do you really have the heart to reject me? You really don't want to check it? The corners of Yiqing Luo's mouth twitched as she raised her hand once again and slapped the man's head. You've created such a huge jealous drama and your motive has already been achieved. Hurry up and get down to business. Dmo Xian seized the opportunity to grab her little hand. Using a little strength, the young lady fell into his arms once again. Lil Luo, just refuses to fall for it. This motive of mine is very difficult to achieve. The man's languid voice drifted into her ears. Yiqing Luo leaned into his arms as she was too lazy to struggle. Stop it. Chapter 3193. Wait a minute. Suddenly Yiqing Luo got up from Dmo Xian's arms as her two little hands touched the man's chest. Dmo Xian grabbed her hands as he gave a devilish smile. Lil Luo, are you intending to check personally? Yes. Yiqing Luo struggled free from his hand as she stretched out her hand to tug his lapel. That forceful stance made the smile in Dmo Xian's eyes grew deeper. He might as well let go of his hand as he laid down. That peerless and elegant face was full of smiles. Come on, Lil Luo. The minute he laid down, Yiqing Luo tugged at his lapel and along with his strength, it opened up. His huge chest muscles were imprinted into her eyes. Yiqing Luo's vision swept across his body. Following that, she started to tug at his arm. Dmo Xian was very cooperative as he allowed her to move her hands all over his body. He was very clear on what Yiqing Luo was doing. But his mouth was still frivolous as he teased, Lil Luo, are you going to check my entire body? Do you need me to undress myself and allow you to check? Yiqing Luo patted his exposed chest as she sat up straight and her little hands held tightly onto his lapel which had slid down to his waist. Shut up. Bam, a sound of something heavy crashing was heard. Immediately following that, a few staggering footsteps were heard as they stepped into the room. Another dong 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 sound of something heavy falling onto the ground was heard. Yiqing Luo's actions froze. Following that, she turned her head stiffly. Then she saw, behind, Yan Xiaoyi and the rest fell onto the ground in a row. Yiqing Luo, Dmo Xian, Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. Looking at each other, they were speechless. The strange atmosphere continued for about half an incense worth of time. Yiqing Luo then stiffly moved her lips. What are you all doing? The few of them who laid on the ground gave a few dry laughs. One by one they supported each other as they climbed up from the ground. If we say, we are just passing by, will you believe it? Yan Xiaoyi gave a dry laugh. Yiqing Luo shook her head stiffly. I don't believe you. Actually, I just simply wanted to ask Lord Dizun about the Palace of Darkness. Tang Beiyuan explained while wiping the cold sweat off her forehead. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips slightly as her stiff and icy cold gaze stared at them. Did he need to hide at the door if he wanted to ask about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness? Look at their posture of falling in a row. He was obviously eavesdropping at the door. Perhaps they were fighting for the best position to eavesdrop, and as they fought they ended up falling into the room. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest expressed, your guess is absolutely right. Cough. If it's not convenient for you, we'll go out first. You that, continue. Yan Xiaoyi touched her cold neck. Then he dragged Tang Beiyuan and Mo Ying toward the door. The other two also started to run out of the room. Stop right there. Yiqing Luo's chilly voice successfully stopped the few of them in their tracks. Just nice, I want to talk to Xian about the Palace of Darkness, it's very convenient. Yiqing Luo spoke word by word calmly. Yan Xiaoyi turned her head around with difficulty as she took a look at Yiqing Luo and quickly shifted her vision away. But, I think, it's not convenient for you? Yiqing Luo followed Yan Xiaoyi's line of sight and lowered her head to take a look. Instantly she didn't feel good. She was sitting on Dmo Xian's waist. She even had one hand tugging on his wide robe. Vividly, a hoodlum who wanted to rape a good young lad. Yiqing Luo. Chapter 3194. In front, a row of people shook their heads in unison. Yiqing Luo. Alright, even she herself didn't believe it. Yiqing Luo released Dmo Xian's collar and pretended to be calm as she moved her little butt away from Dmo Xian's tummy. Following that, she jumped down the bed unhurriedly and calmly gathered her messy robe. Alright, it's convenient now. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat in a serious manner. The row of people opposite stared at her in a daze. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Why? It's not convenient for you? The few of them shrunk their necks neatly. Convenient. There's no other time more convenient than now. Yiqing Luo smiled, then go sit by the side. The few of them rushed to the front hall and sat on both sides of the tea table. Yiqing Luo continued to smile as she glanced sideways at the evildoer who was still lying on the bed with a devilish smile on his lips. Still not getting up? Lil Luo is actually not shy anymore? Dmo Xian stood up lazily as his slender fingers gently gathered his robe. That action was extremely slow. That posture was extremely elegant. As though it was a slow-motion scene playing an artistic performance. It was obviously just a simple tidying of his robe. But it made the man display a kind of captivating charm. Yiqing Luo was expressionless. Why should I be shy? You're my man, even if we do any intimate actions, that's normal. The smile on Dmo Xian's face became even more radiant. He stood up and stood side by side with Yiqing Luo. Really? Since Lil Luo feels that it's normal, then later when we sleep I don't even think about it. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth as she pinched Dmo Xian's waist fiercely. Following that, she quickened her footsteps as she walked towards the front hall. She turned around. Yiqing Luo's expressionless face collapsed. facing a group of plastic sisterhood. She absolutely could not show any shyness or anger. She should be like this now, calm and composed. They absolutely couldn't even say a word of ridicule. Adjusting the expression on her face, Yiqing Luo stepped into the front hall. 5 young ladies sat upright and still, not daring to look around. Yiqing Luo found an empty seat and sat down calmly. Diamo Xian followed closely as he walked over. The 5 girls became even more nervous. Yiqing Luo beckoned to Diamo Xian and pulled him to her side to sit down. The entire room was silent. No one spoke first. Yiqing Luo's vision swept past their faces. Didn't you say you have something to ask? Why are you still daydreaming? Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. We really know our mistakes. Your aura is so strong, how would we dare to open our mouths and ask? Since you're not going to ask, I'll ask first. Yiqing Luo retracted her vision as she looked at Diamo Xian. Have you found the base of secluded darkness palace in South Waves continent? Diamo Xian replied seriously, I've already scouted out the route. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Can you draw out the topography? Yes. Diamo Xian nodded. Then draw out the map, and after we've memorized the route, we'll directly sneak into the base and start. Yiqing Luo excitedly hugged Diamo Xian's arm. Qing Luo, your meaning is? We'll directly attack secluded darkness palace's base? Tang Beiyuan asked in astonishment. Chapter 3195. If we wait passively for the Dark Abyss Palace to attack, the initiative will fall into their hands. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. Moreover, Nether Palace already knows that Xian and I are in South Waves continent and the Imperial Palace's disciples are gradually rushing over, plus, they know that we have a way to deal with the corpse puppets. Once the Palace of Gloomy Darkness attacks, it means that they are fully prepared. However, if we take the initiative to attack and kill our way into their base, at that time the Palace of Darkness will be caught off guard. Saying that, Yiqing Luo's eyes curved as she looked at Diamo Xian. Xian, am I right? Yes. Diamo Xian's thin lips curved upwards, his broad palm gently covered Yiqing Luo's furry little head. Then, under everyone's jealous gaze, he slowly shifted his gaze to them. Little Luo is right. Rather than passively taking a beating, it is better to take the initiative and attack. As long as we destroy the Palace of Gloomy Darkness base in South Waves continent, it will basically be impossible for them to invade South Waves continent. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. He kept cursing in his heart. Although His Majesty said it in a serious manner, his face looked like, my wife is beautiful and everything she says is right. What's going on? But, before we go, we must make preparations. Diamo Xian's expression turned solemn. Moreover, the ones who will attract the firepower are you and the Imperial Palace's disciples. Tang Beiyuan's expression froze. I will lead the Imperial Palace's disciples well. Yan Xiaoyi nodded solemnly. We will try our best not to be a burden. Wait. Yiqing Luo patted Diamo Xian's shoulder. What about me? Follow me. We'll act in secret. Diamo Xian held her little hand. You must promise me that you will listen to my arrangements and not act on your own. He exerted a bit of strength in his arms, and the girl's delicate body fell into his embrace. If you don't listen to me, I won't let you come with me. Yiqing Luo knew that the battle in the Miao tribe had already made Diamo Xian worried. Not long ago, when Diamo Xian went to the base alone to scout, she had also experienced this kind of anxiety and worry for a while. How could she bear to let herself get injured and let Diamo Xian worry? Her eyes stared seriously at Diamo Xian as she nodded her head vigorously. I will definitely follow you closely. Diamo Xian patted her little head as a reward for her obedience. Their eyes met and warmth spread. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. How could this kind of behavior of showing off their affection at the slightest disagreement be acceptable? When I was scouting the way, I came across a mechanism. Below the mechanism is the place to refine corpse puppets. Diamo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo, not intending to let go as he continued to say, there are at least thousands of defective goods inside, at least. There are more than 10 cultivators repairing those defective goods, should be trying to upgrade the defective goods. More than 10 profound practitioners? Yu'in is dead and they can't find anyone whose mental power was strong enough to refine a semi-finished or completed product, so they used other cultivators to refine the corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. She found it strange. Why did Yu'in die? The Dark Nether Palace was able to recover so quickly and have an endless supply of undead puppets. So, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness had not found someone who could replace Gloomy. Instead, he used the mental energy of more than 10 profound practitioners to refine corpse puppets. Because he didn't have enough spiritual energy. Chapter 3196. To exterminate the Palace of Darkness's base in South Water Continent. The most important thing was to exterminate those corpses and the cultivators who refine them. They are in charge of attracting the attention of the Palace of Darkness's disciples. You and I will sneak into the secret room and settle those corpses. Dmo Xian suddenly tightened his grip as his voice was deep. Remember, you must follow me closely and be obedient. I know I will be obedient. Yiqing Luo pouted. Dmo Xian pinched her nose. Your mental power is not enough to deal with those corpses. You're not willing to listen to me? I'm willing. I can't be any more willing. Yiqing Luo hugged his palm as she whispered, this is in front of my sisters, can't you leave some face for me? Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. Face. It didn't exist all right. The next day, Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian walked out of the house hand in hand. Outside the inn, the orderly and loud sound of the soldiers' training could be heard. That orderly and deep voice added a bit of blood to the morning. After recuperating for 2 days, the soldiers' injuries were almost healed. There were a few slightly more serious injuries lying in the main hall. The other soldiers were already training outside. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian went downstairs and walked to the main hall. Yan Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin served the breakfast which they had prepared. Yiqing Luo ate a few mouthfuls. Suddenly, a burst of excited laughter resounded throughout the inn. Immediately following that, a room door on the second floor opened and a slender figure rushed out. That person was obviously extremely excited. She couldn't even be bothered to walk up the stairs. She directly leapt down from the second floor and flipped over in front of Yiqing Luo. Qing Luo. Look, what is this? The lady spoke agitatedly as she stretched out her hand. With a flip of her fair palm, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. A dazzling fan that seemed to be burning with raging flames appeared in her hand. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as she stood up. Glower flame fan. Although there was a huge change in its appearance. But Yiqing Luo could still recognize that this was her glower flame fan. The connection between her soul and the glower flame fan couldn't be faked. The ghastly flame fan is indeed a weapon that can grow. Tang Beiyuan was extremely excited. I spent an entire night, and not only did I manage to fuse my mind power with the glowing flame fan, but I also managed to upgrade its quality. That is to say, the glower flame fan is now a legendary grade spiritual weapon. Yiqing Luo's heart started to beat wildly. She stretched out her hand and took the glowing flame fan. As soon as he touched it, he felt a burning sensation. This was the feeling of the glowing flame fan resonating with his soul. The glowing flame fan in his palm began to sway slightly. Yiqing Luo seemed to be able to hear a tiny voice ringing beside her ear. Yiqing Luo's fingers gently stroked the glower flame fan. Shortly after, he slowly unfurled the glowing flame fan. The bewitching red light moved like raging flames. The entire hall seemed to be shrouded in a layer of flames. In an instant it disappeared. Yiqing Luo gripped her glower flame fan tightly, her eyes filled with joy. Beiyuan, thank you. No need to thank me, I should be the one thanking you. If it wasn't for the glowing flame fan, I'm afraid my armament refining grade would never be able to be upgraded in this lifetime. Tang Beiyuan shook her head and then waved her hand agitatedly. No, I have too much feeling now. I need to go back to my room and continue to refine some weapons to fight against the undead puppets. Eat slowly. Chapter 3197. Yiqing Luo looked at Tang Beiyuan's departing back as she shook her head helplessly. This was her passion towards armament refining. Tang Beiyuan was totally engrossed in armament refining, unable to extricate herself. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and kept her glower flame fan as she pounced towards the man next to her. Ah Xian, my glower flame fan has grown. The man caught hold of the young lady steadily as he stuffed the breakfast in his hand into her mouth. This is your reward. Yiqing Luo nudged her little head against his chest. Ah Xian, my glower flame fan has grown and even fused with the serene Yin's mental energy. Little Luo, is awesome. Dmo Xian put down the chopsticks as his arms supported her swaying little body. Don't you understand what I mean? Yiqing Luo raised her head as her chin rested on his chest. Her sparkling eyes stared at him as she blinked her eyes. Dmo Xian's peerless appearance curled his thin lips. I've already rewarded you and praised you, still not satisfied? This action of yours is reminding me of another form of reward? The latter half of his sentence was suppressed as it was extremely magnetic. As he said that, His eyes were filled with a dim glow as he gazed deeply at her lips. Yiqing Luo's cheeks suddenly blushed. She might as well be too lazy to act coquettishly. She propped herself up as her little hand hooked onto Diamo Xian's neck. You have to accompany me to try out the glower flame fan's current effect. No way. Diamo Xian rejected without even thinking. It's too dangerous. That's why I'm looking for you to accompany me. Yiqing Luo took a step back as her two hands directly grabbed onto Diamo Xian's neck. Are you accompanying me or not? Diamo Xian quietly looked at the young lady's coquettish expression as his eyes shimmered with a hint of a smile. All right, I'll accompany you. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles as she hugged onto Diamo Xian's arm as she hurriedly walked towards the door. Yan Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin, who were sitting opposite each other, exchanged glances. The overlord would agree to Qing Luo's request. Not because Qing Luo had used his neck to threaten him, but because of that sentence. That's why I'm looking for you to accompany me. Right? They were fed a mouthful of dog food early in the morning. Were they still going to eat their breakfast? Yiqing Luo and Diamo Xian had just walked out of the inn's main entrance when they saw the great general and several tens of soldiers, sweating profusely as they trained. Seeing Yiqing Luo, the general turned around and greeted them. Yiqing Luo waved her hand, indicating for them to continue. Pulling Diamo Xian along, he walked towards another open space. Because of this war, Gufeng City was almost destroyed. There was a lot of open space. Yiqing Luo looked around, trying to find a place where she wouldn't disturb the others to test out the glower flame fan. He had only taken a few steps. Suddenly, a loud noise came from behind. Countless footsteps could be heard, rushing over heavily. Stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. There were a few shrill female voices mixed with a lot of messy echoes. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly and turned around. Dozens of commoners swarmed over. Each and every one of them bore a furious expression, which made Yiqing Luo's heart had a kind of ominous premonition. The great general and the other soldiers were also stunned by this scene. Then he immediately stopped his training and ran over. They stopped a large portion of the commoners. But there were still 10 commoners who had already rushed in front of Yiqing Luo. Running in front was the one whom Yiqing Luo had met yesterday, the one who was spitting out white bubbles and twitching all over, who was finally cured by little foam. Old Mistress Wang stretched out her hand to grab Yiqing Luo. Diamo Xian's long arms scooped and shifted the young lady's figure away. Chapter 3198. You witch. Old Mistress Wang was blocked by the invisible barrier and was knocked back several times. She roared in exasperation. More than a dozen other citizens also rushed forward. But they were all bounced back by the barrier. For a moment, the citizens who were stopped by the soldiers and the dozen citizens who were still rushing forward and bouncing back, cursed and scolded, spreading throughout the entire Valley Wind City. This uncontrollable scene caused the great general's anger to surge. He gathered his profound energy and suddenly shouted, "All of you shut up." The powerful majesty made the citizens' voices stop abruptly. The general's expression was cold and his dignified and solemn eyes seemed to be wrapped in frost. He swept his gaze over the citizens and said, "You didn't take the general's words to heart yesterday, did you?" The citizens had an instinctive fear of the soldiers. Especially when the general was stationed at the border all year round, his imposing manner was unbearable for the ordinary citizens. All of them lowered their heads and were suppressed by the powerful pressure, not daring to speak. "Don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because I'm a soldier." The general was obviously very angry by the citizens' behavior today. His face was dark and the muscles all over his body were tense. His eyes were still filled with anger and coldness. "Let me tell you, if you think that staying in the safe zone is too good, then all of you, go to the battlefield. No matter man or woman, old or young, sick or disabled, if you want to eat, get lost to the battlefield." The great general's words shocked the commoners, and they all revealed expressions of terror on their faces. Most of the people who stayed in the safe zone were old, weak, sick or disabled. Those young and strong people had long been sent to various places in the South Wave continent to fight against the Palace of Darkness. Let them go to the battlefield? That was basically using them as cannon fodder? The citizens immediately panicked. Old Mistress Wang, who was still hitting the barrier, suddenly sat on the ground. Her wrinkled old face was full of tears. "General, if we weren't really angry, how could we possibly disturb your morning exercise?" Old Maid Wang cried and pounded the ground. "Great General, you don't know this. The reason why we rushed here in large numbers was because we wanted the murderer to give us an explanation." Old Maid Wang was crying and howling at the same time. but the words he spat out were clear to the ears. Murderer? These words caused the great general to frown. What do you mean by that? Maidservant Yang is dead. She was dead. Die in the safe zone's kitchen. Old woman Wang cried again. My poor sister. She died so miserably. Her eyes were wide open and she couldn't close them no matter how hard she tried. She died with everlasting regret. Speaking of old maid Yang's death. The rest of the people also withdrew their divine senses from their fear of the general. They anxiously stared at the general's expression before carefully adding, General, although the deaths of ordinary people are not important, but we are also worried that this murderer will extend his hand from the safe zone to you. Yes, yes, yes. You are the heroes who protect the South Tide continent. Nothing must happen to you. Chapter 3199. A commoner took the lead. The other commoners seemed to have found a common excuse. They all made it clear that they were doing this for the sake of the soldiers. The commoners' shameless words made the great general laugh out in anger. Worried about us? Do you think that this general is very stupid and easy to be cheated? No. No, why would we have this kind of meaning? The commoners stuttered as they tried to explain. A few of them closed their mouths slowly. The entire Valley Wind City fell into a deathly silence. Just at this moment, Yiqing Luo, who was suspected by the commoners, calmly opened her mouth. Is Matron Yang dead? The minute she opened her mouth, immediately, it made the commoners' gazes swiftly shifted onto Yiqing Luo. The moment their gazes met Yiqing Luo, the eyes of the commoners were filled with hatred. Facing the commoners' gazes, Yiqing Luo only curled her lips into a smile as her expression remained calm. She walked out from behind Diamo Xian. She raised her hand. Her fair jade-like hand was raised. Her slender fingers gently caressed the air. Everyone saw Yiqing Luo slowly walking towards them step by step. That protective screen which repelled the commoners earlier, as though it had never existed before. Seeing Yiqing Luo's figure getting nearer and nearer, the hatred on the commoners' faces were all replaced by fear and terror. All of them shrunk their necks as they immediately retreated, until Yiqing Luo stood not too far away from Matron Wang. A trace of disdain and ridicule appeared on her beautiful face. I have to say something on behalf of the great general. She spoke in a cold voice. If the great general really doesn't care about your lives, then he wouldn't have built a so-called safety zone just for you. In the great general's and all the soldiers' hearts, your lives are more important than theirs. She paused as her gaze swept past those commoners. Her gaze went straight past those commoners as she looked towards the safety zone, at that half-open door. She spoke coldly again, sacrificing so many soldiers' lives to protect you, but you have such thoughts. I really feel bitterly disappointed for the soldiers. The commoners were so shocked by that gaze that their spines turned cold. All of them broke out in a cold sweat. Now let's talk about Matron Yang's death. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes. What has her death got to do with me? The commoners were already stunned by the great general and Yiqing Luo's aura. None of them dared to speak again. Their eyes met secretly. Finally, Matron Wang, who was the nearest to Yiqing Luo, spoke out in a trembling voice. Other than you, who else would kill Matron Yang? You're the only one who fought with old maid Yang yesterday, and only you have the ability to kill her. What evidence do you have to prove that it's me? Yiqing Luo sneered. Old Mistress Wang's body began to tremble. Even if there's no evidence, it must have been you who killed her. Other than you, no one else would kill old Mistress Yang. Yiqing Luo scoffed. If I wanted to kill her, I could have done it yesterday. You wanted to avoid responsibility, so you killed Grandma Yang on purpose. Do you think that we won't know that you killed him just like that? Old maid Wang retorted. Enough. The great general bellowed in displeasure. What's with the noise? Let's go take a look at old maid Yang's corpse first. Chapter 3200. The great general's gaze was deep like a deep pool, unable to see the bottom. He stared at Madame Wang and paused for every sentence. I believe that Madame D is not the kind of person who would secretly kill. I am willing to vouch for Madame D. Madame Wang immediately kept quiet. The others naturally didn't dare to say anything. After the commotion from the commoners, Yiqing Luo's plan to grab Diamo Xian to try the glower flame fan had failed. The group of people walked towards the safety zone. Before they even got close, Yiqing Luo could hear the scattered footsteps from the half-open door, which sounded extremely chaotic. She pushed the door open. She could still see a few commoners who hadn't run away in time. The great general's face was gloomy. Where's Madame Yang? A middle-aged woman trembled as she opened her mouth. Here, here. The middle-aged woman stood at the entrance of the kitchen as she trembled all over. The great general strode forward. Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian as she followed up. Pushing the kitchen door open, she saw Madame Yang lying in front of the stove. By the side of Madame Yang, there were a few pieces of burnt wood scattered messily beside her feet. Yiqing Luo walked over slowly. Madame Yang's face was ashen and her eyes were wide opened, reflecting into her pupils. Some of the more timid commoners all screamed out, "Ah!" Madame Wang stood at the entrance, not daring to enter. "You? It's definitely you killed Madame Yang?" Madame D was in the inn last night and Madame Yang died in the safety zone's kitchen. The great general frowned as he rebutted on behalf of Yiqing Luo. Everyone here huddles together to sleep and we can't hear any commotion. Someone opened his mouth. Only a cultivator like her is able to kill Madame Yang silently. Moreover, Madame Yang has always taken good care of us and we can't wait to be grateful to her. So how could we possibly kill her? Only the person who had a dispute with Madame Yang yesterday is the murderer. Looking at the corpse lying on the ground, the commoners only felt angrier by the minute. Yiqing Luo relied on her cultivator's identity. He snuck into the safe zone and killed old Mistress Yang without anyone noticing. Then the next one, would it be their turn? Did she want to kill all of them? If there was a possibility of endangering his own life. The commoners' hatred and resistance towards Yiqing Luo grew even more intense. Listening to the clamor of the commoners, the great general's face was ashen. He wanted to stop these commoners. Before he could open his mouth, Yiqing Luo's cold voice was heard. "Do you need to be so sneaky to kill an ordinary person? You guys are looking down on me too much." Her voice was arrogant and wicked. Between their brows, there was an arrogant, cold smile. "To be honest, I feel that killing you would dirty my hands." When Yiqing Luo said this sentence, she intentionally slowed down her tone, as she said it word by word. The people also heard it very clearly. All of them were angered to the point that their faces flushed red with righteous indignation. Yiqing Luo slowly walked towards maidservant Yang's corpse as she bent over and scanned the surroundings. Seeing her actions, the commoners immediately shouted in a trembling voice, What do you want to do? Maidservant Yang is already dead, what else do you want to do with her corpse?" Yiqing Luo couldn't even be bothered with them. Her vision swept past maidservant Yang's surroundings. She half squatted down as she looked at maidservant Yang's eyes, which couldn't be closed no matter what. She casually picked up a piece of wood shavings on the ground and flipped maidservant Yang's neck. Chapter 3201. Apparently she was strangled. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Strangled? Maidservant Yang was strangled to death? What's the matter, Imperial Madam? Did you discover something? Grand General had been paying attention to Yiqing Luo's expression, and on seeing her reaction, he immediately opened his mouth to ask. Yiqing Luo threw away the wood shavings in her hands, and maidservant Yang should be killed by someone familiar. Familiar? Grand General immediately looked outside the kitchen, at those commoners who had an unfriendly expression. To maidservant Yang. The only people he was familiar with were these commoners. Stop trying to sow discord. You're obviously the one who killed maidservant Yang and you're trying to push the blame to us? The commoners were instantly unconvinced. They were just a bunch of old, weak and disabled people without the strength to even truss a chicken. How could they possibly kill a person? Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as her narrow eyes squinted. According to the current situation, maidservant Yang should be preparing to cook some food in the middle of the night. These charcoal should be lit in the middle of the night. She pointed to the ground, at the charcoal which was scattered beside the corpse. The expression on maidservant Yang's face is not fear but shock. Do you think that if I appeared in the kitchen and wanted to kill maidservant Yang, would she feel shocked? Or fear? Yiqing Luo crossed her arms as she asked the question with a smile which didn't look like a smile. The commoners' clamoring stopped. They put themselves in the shoes. If it was them, seeing Yiqing Luo appearing behind them in the middle of the night, with a face full of killing intent, they would absolutely scream out in fear as they fled frantically. Absolutely could not be. Shocked. Then what if? Maidservant Yang was shocked that you were able to sneak into the kitchen without being discovered? You can just kill her directly. Just when everyone was speechless, another voice started to stir up the pace. I'm a cultivator, is it very difficult for me to do it silently? Yiqing Luo ridiculed as her lips curled upwards. The commoners were gagged as they kept their mouths shut. Yiqing Luo slowly shifted to Dmo Xian's side as her voice was calm. No matter if you believe me or not, this has nothing to do with me. I only want to remind you. Why would maidservant Yang appear in the kitchen to cook food in the middle of the night? And who could it be that appeared in the kitchen and left her in such disbelief, that she was so shocked before she died that she couldn't rest in peace? Saying that, Yiqing Luo held onto Dmo Xian's arm as she turned around and stepped out of the kitchen. The people were stunned by her aura. He was also shocked by the deeper meaning of her words. No one spoke up to stop him. The general glanced at the soldiers beside him and ordered in a low voice, "Call the military doctor over to check the cause of death. Let the other commoners return to their courtyards." After he finished his instructions, the Grand General took a step forward and chased after Yiqing Luo's footsteps. "Great General." Yiqing Luo suddenly spoke out once again. Her voice was a little deep. She stopped in her tracks and slowly raised her head to stare at the general's handsome face. "There is something that I have to remind you of. These commoners were not very cultured, but they could say that they were worried about the soldiers, so they came to find trouble with them. Furthermore, he knew how to flatter them. Would you believe it if I said that there was no one guiding him?" The great general seemed as though he was stunned by Yiqing Luo's words as he stood stiffly on the spot. A pair of dignified eyes, so dark that it was gloomy. How would he not hear the meaning in Yiqing Luo's words? Someone was behind the scenes, manipulating everything, trying to make use of the commoners. To deal with Yiqing Luo? Chapter 3202. And in this safety zone, the one who could incite the hearts of the people. The Grand General's gaze turned darker and gloomier. He slowly moved his gaze, looking around the people, searching for something. But after searching one round, he hadn't found the person he was looking for. The Grand General's expression turned uglier by the minute. This was their South Waves continent's private affairs. Yiqing Luo had no intention to interfere. She held Dmo Xian's arm as she raised her head to look at his handsome side profile. "Ah Xian, let's go play with the glower flame fan." Dmo Xian glanced sideways at her. His shimmering peach blossom eyes were filled with emotions. The two of them held each other's hands as they walked past those commoners who unknowingly moved their feet aside and gave way to the entrance of the safety zone. Suddenly, the safety zone, which had fallen into a strange silence, was heard stumbling footsteps. Matron Wang stumbled as she rushed forward. "No way. You can't leave. Before there's any evidence to prove that you're not the killer, you can't leave this place." She pounced forward as the depths of her old eyes were filled with a chilling glint. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. This Matron Wang seemed a little strange. "She's stopping us from leaving the safety zone." Dmo Xian's deep voice floated down from above. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. "Intentionally, what's your motive?" Dmo Xian's brows rose slightly as his thin lips curled up frivolously. His slender fingers tapped on his cheek. "Yiqing Luo? In this kind of situation, please don't draw hatred, all right?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at Dmo Xian as she tugged his arm, ignoring Matron Wang's wails behind her as she left on her own. Since Matron Wang wanted to make her and Dmo Xian stay, they couldn't stay here any longer. "Are you feeling guilty? Earlier you intentionally put on an act in the kitchen and spouted nonsense, just to make our safety zone's commoners suspect each other and then kill each other. In this way you'll be able to get rid of these eyesore commoners without any effort, isn't it?" Old Maid Wang was roaring at the top of her lungs behind her. "Shut up." The Grand General bellowed furiously. "Matron Yang's death, I will give you justice. Stop fooling around in front of me." As soon as the Great General spoke, the soldiers behind her stood in a row, blocking the commoners and Old Woman Wang's path. Old Woman Wang cried unwillingly, "What justice? You're in cahoots with her. How could you possibly give us justice? Aren't you the Great General? Are you going to watch us die inexplicably one by one in front of you?" This rebuttal was barbaric to the extreme. The general was so angry that he ordered the soldiers to drag Old Maid Wang away. Yiqing Luo, who was walking to the entrance, frowned slightly. The world was vast and there were all sorts of people. These commoners were really ingrates that could not be tamed. It was no wonder that they were able to survive until now. It was because of their selfishness that they feared death. However, none of this had much to do with her. She had said everything she needed to say. Whether they listened or not was up to the commoners. After all, when it came to brainwashing, she couldn't be compared to that black-robed lady called Xiao Feng. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly saw Tang Beiyuan rushing over anxiously. "Overlord Qing Luo, I've finally found you." "What happened?" Yiqing Luo's brows creased. Chapter 3203. Secluded Palace's side has started to take action. Tang Beiyuan's expression congealed. Secluded Palace's disciples, with 150 people plus 50 corpse puppets as a team, split into 5 to 6 teams and left the base. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she exchanged glances with DMO Xian. Have the other disciples from the Imperial Palace rushed over? DMO Xian asked in a deep voice. They have already rushed over last night and are already prepared in the dark, ready to take action anytime. Tang Beiyuan replied. DMO Xian's long arm circled around Yiqing Luo's shoulder as he looked at her seriously. Remember, you must listen to my arrangements and don't act on your own. Otherwise, I will lock you on my body, making you unable to move. The meaning behind his words. They were about to carry out the plan which they had planned last night. Secluded Palace wanted to take the opportunity to strike, catching them unprepared. Then they beat them at their own game and directly attacked their Secluded Palace's main camp. After taking care of the Palace of Darkness base in the South Waves continent and destroying those defective undead puppets, how else could Secluded Palace invade South continent? Yiqing Luo's eyes sparkled as her lips curled slightly. Let's go. The three of them immediately turned around and had just stepped out of the main door. Matron Wang pounced onto the soldiers' obstructing arms as she pointed at Yiqing Luo's back and started scolding. You have a guilty conscience. You want to escape? Do you see that Grand General? That slut is trying to escape from punishment. Why are you still obstructing us? Hurry and chase after them. Grand General's brows were tightly knitted as his dignified eyes stared at Yiqing Luo and the other three's backs. This action of hers, doesn't it already prove that she is the murderer who killed Matron Yang? Otherwise, why would she escape? Grand General, did you already know about everything but you turned a blind eye to it because you wanted that slut to kill all of us, right? Seeing that the Grand General still had no reaction, Old Maid Wang continued to howl non-stop. Grand General's brows were filled with anger. The soldiers were so angry that they wanted to give Matron Wang a few slaps on her old face. But as a soldier's good qualities, it made them swallow the anger in their hearts. Check the cause of Matron Yang's death. Also, keep a close watch on these commoners. After saying this, the great general did not want to look at the clamoring commoners anymore. The general quickly left the safe zone. His eyes quickly scanned the surroundings. But he didn't discover Yiqing Luo and the others. He rushed to the inn. In the inn, those young mercenaries of the world group had all disappeared. Great General. The soldiers who were resting in the main hall spoke up. The Overlord and Madame Dizun seemed to have something urgent to attend to. They left this batch of weapons behind and left in a hurry. Following the direction of the soldier's finger, the Great General looked over. On the counter of the inn, there was a pile of smaller weapons. The Great General glanced at them. There were about 20 to 30 of them. It is very likely that Tenebrous Palace will attack South Water Continent today. Madam Emperor wants you to discuss with Wind Valley Sect Master to defend South Water Continent as much as possible. Another soldier said, as long as you can hold on and defend Valley Wind City, she can guarantee that after today, the South Tide Continent will return to its former peace. The expression on the general's face changed slightly. The Overlord and Madame Dizun and the others. What on earth were they planning? South Water Continent really? After today, would it be able to return to its former state? Chapter 3204. The moment he chose to believe in Yiqing Luo, he could only choose to continue believing in her. I will head over to the Ancient Wind Sect now, call the brothers to gather urgently and be on guard. The Great General swept all the weapons on the counter into his space pocket and turned towards the direction of the Valley Wind Sect. On the other side, Yiqing Luo and her entourage led the same group of Imperial Palace's disciples as they quietly approached the Palace of Darkness base. Under DMO Xian's arrangement, the Imperial Palace's disciples were arranged to hide in the blind spots near the base. Devil Class's entourage were arranged to be in the middle of the Imperial Palace's disciples. Yiqing Luo carefully sized up the surroundings of the base. This place was located at the east of Valley Wind City, behind a dilapidated temple which was more secluded. Because of the great battle, no one would pass by here. But it was precisely because this was the place. It was easier for them to arrange the blind spots which they could hide in. Follow me closely. DMO Xian pinched Yiqing Luo's little hand as his deep voice was filled with solemnity. Yiqing Luo raised her other hand and hooked his neck as she pulled him down. Following that, she tiptoed and bit his lips. The rest wait for us to come out and continue. Dmo Xian's eyes flashed as his thin lips curled into an evil smile. All right, I'm looking forward to it. The two of them exchanged glances. Following that, they turned into two remnant shadows as they disappeared from everyone's sight. The two of them were very fast, and their presence was concealed very well. The Palace of Darkness disciples who were guarding outside the base totally didn't notice their presence. Infiltrating into the base was very smooth. In Yiqing Luo's mind, the map which Dmo Xian had drawn was already stored. Very quickly she understood the place which they were at. Dmo Xian also clearly recorded down the time when the Palace of Darkness disciples patrolled. And Dmo Xian was around. The two of them infiltrated into the base's inner area and it was simply too smooth. They moved swiftly along the way. Very quickly they arrived at the secret room which Dmo Xian mentioned. The security here was much stronger than when Dmo Xian came yesterday. 10 over Palace of Darkness disciples were guarding nearby. And occasionally the patrol team would come over to take a look. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo were hiding in a room near the secret room. Increase your vigilance. Today is the most crucial moment. If the Elephant Saint technique succeeds, we will be able to obtain the secret technique of the Dark Palace tomorrow, raise our Xian rank and ascend to the upper realm. Suddenly a clear voice rang out in the base. A tall and slender figure stood with his hands behind his back. His clothes were high and mighty and he was gesticulating. Also, Team 2, get ready to support xianxia. Don't just stand there in a daze. If something happens, can you bear the responsibility? That figure swaggered towards the direction where Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian were hiding as he walked over. As soon as the man approached, Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated slightly. This person was none other than, and it was an old acquaintance. Wasn't it? The one in the Heavenly Academy, the former faculty council president, Xianmu? Why was he here? Look at his arrogant look. It seemed that his position in the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was not bad. Creak. Xianmu pushed open the door. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo exchanged glances. As long as Xianmu closed the door and discovered them, they would immediately make a move. But after Xianmu entered the room, he swaggered towards the bookshelf in front. Chapter 3205. Xiang is really... It's just a valley wind city, it can be settled easily, why must he be so careful? Xianmu muttered in a low voice. After that, he fished out a token from the bookshelf. He took the token and walked out of the room. Under the order of xianxia, I want to go in. Xianmu raised the token and spoke to the secluded palace's disciple who was guarding the entrance. The secluded palace's disciple took the token, flipped it a few times and stepped back. You must come out within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. Xianmu curled his lips and patted his elegant robe. I don't want to stay in that disgusting place for long, no need to burn a stick of incense. After that, he raised his head high and strode towards the secret room. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's lips curled upwards. They were still thinking about how to sneak into the secret chamber without anyone noticing. Unexpectedly, heaven was on her side. Yiqing Luo expressed. This was the first time she felt that Xianmu looked rather pleasing to the eye. The secret room door opened and Xianmu walked in. Swoosh swoosh, 2 gusts of cold wind hit them. The secluded palace's disciples were blown by this cold wind. One by one they raised their hands and touched their faces. What's going on? What was that? When? The secluded palace's disciples looked around in puzzlement. But they didn't find anything unusual. One of the secluded palace's disciple frowned and said, Mr. C, please wait a moment. Xianmu was thinking of entering the secret room quickly to complete the task given by xianxia. Suddenly he heard someone calling him. He turned back impatiently. What? Mr. C, do you feel anything strange? The secluded palace's disciple saw Xianmu's normal expression and asked cautiously. Oh. Xianmu waved his hand impatiently. What are you all so worried about? This is your secret base. Other than you, who else knows about this place? Even if they know about this place, who dares to come here? Besides, with all of you keeping a tight watch, even a fly wouldn't be able to get in. What strange thing could happen? The secluded palace's disciple laughed along. Mr. C is right, we are overthinking, please. Xianmu snorted and quickly walked into the secret chamber. The door to the secret room was closed. The smiling face of the Palace of Darkness disciple collapsed. Isn't it just a stinking brat who can ride 10,000 men? You still dare to be unreasonable in front of your father. Who asked us not to be like him, so shameless, treating ourselves as women and flattering him in all kinds of ways? Another disciple of the secluded darkness palace agreed. Several disciples of secluded palace expressed their dissatisfaction with Xianmu. The strange feeling he felt just now was also thrown to the back of his mind. At this moment, Yiqing Luo nestled in Diamo Xian's arms as she stood steadily in the secret room. Xianmu was minding his own business and walked forward. He did not notice that there were two more people behind him. The minute she entered the secret room, Yiqing Luo smelt an extremely pungent stench. The air was filled with densing qi. It gave people an extremely uncomfortable feeling. Xianmu, who was in front, was also affected by the stench and was swearing as he moved forward. After walking for a while, a winding staircase appeared in front of him. Xianmu walked down. Yiqing Luo and Diamo Xian followed closely behind. The circular staircase dazzled one's eyes. Chapter 3206. The moment he stopped, his line of sight happened to see behind him the two figures on the stairs above him. You guys? Xianmu was stunned, his eyes widened. How did you get in? This kind of spiraling stairs. It was only a matter of time before they were discovered. Yiqing Luo had no intention to continue hiding in the dark when they reached the secret chamber. The two who were discovered didn't show any signs of panic. President Xi, long time no see. Yiqing Luo greeted him with a sweet smile. Xianmu stared at Yiqing Luo's face in shock. That face which made him hate and loathe. His pupils kept expanding. How could it be you? Why are you here? What are you trying to do? It's been so long, don't you miss me? Yiqing Luo continued smiling. As for why we are here, it's because we followed you in. Xianmu recalled when they walked into the secret chamber. The secluded palace disciples questioned him. He felt a chill down his spine. These two people actually followed him into the secret room under the watchful eyes of so many guards. That was enough to tell how strong were their abilities. Even if he was under the protection of the sacred elephant technique, basically no one in the profound grade could defeat him. But Yiqing Luo was not an ordinary person. Moreover, the man beside Yiqing Luo, he was absolutely not their match. Xianmu clenched his fists tightly, his eyes were covered with a chilly intent. What are you trying to do? The smell in this secret chamber is so pungent. I wonder what kind of shameful things your secluded palace are doing in this secret chamber. Yiqing Luo looked at him smilingly. My dear husband and I are very curious about this secret chamber, so we are here to take a look. President Xi doesn't have any objections, right? This is the base of the secluded palace. Xianmu suppressed his anger. Do you believe that as long as I shout, the disciples of the secluded palace will rush over? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. I don't believe it. Do you think that just the two of you can escape from this base? Xianmu was infuriated by Yiqing Luo's fearless look. Get out of the secret chamber now and I will not haggle with you. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she burst out laughing. But we're very interested in this secret room. As soon as he finished speaking, Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly flashed. His body was already close to Xianmu. Her 5 fingers moved and clasped Xianmu's neck. The speed was so fast that Xianmu could not react at all. You. Xianmu's throat tightened. You are too noisy. Yiqing Luo chuckled as she stuffed a pill into Xianmu's mouth. Immediately he released Xianmu. Xianmu's legs went limp on the ground, his hands wrapped around his neck and he vomited desperately. However, no matter how hard he tried, nothing came out. Don't waste your energy, the poison pill will melt once it enters your mouth and at the fastest speed, it will integrate into your limbs and bones. Other than the antidote, there is no other way to force the poison pill out. Yiqing Luo wiped her hands and took elegant steps back to Diamo Xian's side. Her eyes were filled with a sly smile. My poison pill, you should be very clear about it. If you are obedient, I can give you the antidote. Xianmu's hands, which were pressed on the stairs, curled into fists one by one. He was very clear. Chapter 3207. Because he knew it too well. He didn't even have the leeway to resist. Despicable. Xianmu roared angrily from the bottom of his heart. Yiqing Luo's pink lips deepened. Let's go, continue to walk down and enjoy the secret of the Palace of Obscurity. Xianmu glared at Yiqing Luo angrily. Huh. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. The drawn-out sound entered Xianmu's ears. He quivered and stood up abruptly. If you want to follow, then follow. He started walking again and walked down the stairs. That circle of stairs was really dizzying. Xianmu walked slowly and stopped from time to hold his forehead and shake his head. After walking for a long time, he had only walked down half of the stairs. If Yiqing Luo still couldn't tell that Xianmu was deliberately delaying time, then she must have a hole in her brain. When Xianmu stopped again, Yiqing Luo's cold voice came from behind. Do you want to walk down by yourself or I will kick you down? Xianmu's hand that was holding his forehead suddenly froze. Yiqing Luo held Dmo Xian's arm and slowly walked towards Xianmu. It seems that you prefer violence. Saying that, she slowly lifted her foot. Xianmu's face stiffened and took a few steps back in horror, almost falling down the stairs. I'll go. He staggered and walked down the stairs quickly. After Xianmu cooperated, he quickly walked out of the staircase. After the stairs there was a long corridor. The putrid stench of decay was even more pungent. Even Xianmu couldn't help but cover his nose. But what was even more shocking was that on both sides of the long corridor, there were barbs hooked to rotten corpses. TSK. The Palace of Obscurity's hobby is really strange actually. Like to hide corpses. Yiqing Luo calmly glanced at the corpses on both sides and clicked her tongue. Xianmu didn't even dare to look at both sides of the long corridor. He really couldn't figure it out. A woman could actually face such a disgusting thing without batting an eyelid. Simply not like a lady. President C, why did you come to this place which is filled with corpses? Yiqing Luo asked with a smile. Xianmu's face was ugly. Because of the smell of the air and the yin qi, his face was pale. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Don't want the antidote anymore? Xianmu gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. You already know what is inside, why ask when you already know the answer? Where is it? We don't know. Yiqing Luo blinked her long eyelashes innocently, smiling innocently. Xianmu's face froze, he gritted his teeth and continued, Stop pretending. Xianxia said that you know what undead corpse puppets are and how to deal with them. How could you not know what this place is? Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders and put on a look of sudden realization. Oh? So this is where the undead puppets are made. You. Xianmu finally understood Yiqing Luo's motive. Yiqing Luo wanted him to reveal the secret of the secluded palace to her personally. Despicable. Treacherous. Xianmu secretly cursed in his heart. His eyes were filled with coldness. Do you think you can escape from here? As long as the undead corpse puppets are activated, even if you can deal with the undead corpse puppets, you can't deal with all the undead puppets here. Chapter 3208. Xianmu lowered his eyelids and stopped talking. In his heart there was another plan. He turned around and walked forward quickly without looking sideways. Yiqing Luo snorted lightly, pulled Dmo Xian and followed up. That trace of calculation in Xianmu's eyes naturally did not escape Yiqing Luo's eyes. Regarding Xianmu's idea, Yiqing Luo could more or less guess. The disciples who were guarding outside the secret chamber gave Xianmu a time limit, which meant that within the time it took to burn a stick of incense, Xianmu did not leave the secret chamber. They would definitely come in and drive them out of the secret chamber. Xianmu had been delaying the time. He was probably trying to make use of the time to let those disciples enter the secret chamber. In this way they would be able to discover that they had entered the secret chamber. His wishful thinking was indeed successful. What bad idea are you thinking of again? Dmo Xian's gentle and magnetic voice was whispered into her ears. He lowered his eyes. In his pupils, there was a reflection of the young lady's stunning face. The young lady's curved eyebrows overflowed with a slight craftiness. As he looked, the corners of his lips unconsciously rose into an arc. What bad idea this is called. Resourceful. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes slyly. The man's slender fingers gently tapped on her forehead. After a while they walked through the long corridor and an arched stone door appeared in front. Xianmu quickly rushed towards the stone door. His face was filled with unconcealable joy. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. At the moment when Xianmu was about to push open the stone door, she clasped his shoulder. The strength of her 5 fingers increased. Xianmu only felt that there was a stream of air in his internal organs, constantly stirring up all the organs in his body. His forehead broke out in cold sweat due to the pain. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she slowly loosened her hand. President C, don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Whether you want the antidote or not, it depends on your next performance. Xianmu's eyes protruded from the pain. That seemingly elegant and handsome face was distorted and extremely ugly. He pressed his hands against his chest and then his abdomen. The pain in his body was almost unbearable. "I will be obedient. I will be obedient." Xianmu's painful voice was broken. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. The pain in Xianmu's body at this moment calmed down. He leaned against the stone door and panted heavily. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat, soaking his robe. "Push the door open and go in," Yiqing Luo ordered. Xianmu's legs were still trembling and the strength he used to push the door was weak. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept across. He exerted force and pushed the stone door open. What came at him was an endless black aura. Energy billowed in the air. The cold breath made Xianmu shiver and hugged his arms. His entire body was trembling and he shuddered as he walked in. Through the floating black qi, Yiqing Luo could vaguely see that behind the stone door was an extremely spacious refining place. On the right stood several defective undead corpse puppets. Every single one of them was stiff and straight. At a glance there were probably over 1,000 of them. On the other side there was a refining platform. On the high platform, corpses were hanging from iron hooks in the sky. Below there was an extremely vigorous fire. Yiqing Luo estimated that there were at least 200 or so corpses hanging in the air. That was the place to refine the undead corpse puppets. Chapter 3209. Those cultivators were all sitting cross-legged around the refining platform with their eyes shut, constantly depleting the mental energy in their bodies. There were a few cultivators whose faces were sometimes pale, sometimes ashen. What's more, some cultivators' faces were pitch black as their features twisted in pain, as though there was some kind of energy surging in their bodies. But they still persisted in transferring their mental energy. What was going on? Look carefully at the burning fire below the corpse. She heard a man's voice reminding her. Yiqing Luo's gaze turned and fell onto those burning flames. Initially she didn't notice anything wrong. Just as she was about to retract her gaze and ask Diamo Xian, a glint flashed across her eyes. That flame, the arc of the burning, was not normal. No, not right. That wasn't an ordinary flame. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly turned grave. That burning, dancing flame arc. It was like a human. Struggling in pain, struggling with all his might. Vaguely, a burst of thick black yin qi rose from the flame bit by bit, merging into the corpse hanging in midair. Yiqing Luo grabbed Diamo Xian's arm tightly. "That's not a flame. That's a human soul. Human's resentment." "That's right," Diamo Xian replied solemnly. "The refining of the corpse puppet is to use the human soul and resentment, and through a special secret method, the corpse puppet becomes a killing weapon. For these defective products, the Palace of Darkness actually used the human soul as food." Yiqing Luo clenched her fists in shock. This kind of heartless action, don't tell me the upper realm and the so-called heavenly way which maintains the realm's balance doesn't care. It's not that they don't care, but they don't have time to care. Diamo Xian touched her hair. The distance between the upper realm and lower realm is too far. If it wasn't for the strong energy which attracted the attention of the upper realm's balance historian, then they would rush over. But the mastermind of the Palace of Darkness has grasped the boundary of this energy. If it wasn't for someone reporting, the upper realm's balance historian would not be able to detect this matter. This was the so-called, "the mountain is high and the emperor is far away, what can they do to me?" The most important point is the identity of the person behind the scenes. There's a possibility that even the balance historian can't control it. Diamo Xian's voice sunk. "Now we can only wait for Qingwu to bring the news." Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as her eyes stared intently at that seemingly excited but in actual fact it was struggling in pain. Her slender fingers curled up one by one. She was not a saint. However, they definitely couldn't be like the gloomy palace, killing the innocent. At the same time she was determined to destroy this base. While the two were talking, Xianmu had already walked in. His voice was trembling as he whispered something to a man in a black robe who walked out from the dark. Soon Xianmu handed the token to the black-robed man. His hands were shaking non-stop. The black-robed man laughed mockingly. "I don't know what the higher-ups are thinking, sending a coward like you to ask for the corpse puppet. With your guts, do you think you can successfully bring the corpse puppet out?" Chapter 3210. The black-robed man sneered. After taking the token, He turned around and walked towards the direction where the corpse puppets were placed. Xianmu was angry and annoyed. He glanced at Yiqing Luo's direction from time to time. From his eyes, Yiqing Luo could read his thoughts. Xianmu was pondering whether to tell the black-robed man about their whereabouts. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed a trace of evil smile. She looked up and winked at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian held her wrist tightly as he lowered his voice and whispered into her ear, "Follow me closely and be obedient." "Yes, my future husband." Yiqing Luo nodded with a smile. Dmo Xian's pupils shrank slightly and the smile in his eyes deepened. "Get rid of those 3 words and say it again." Yiqing Luo raised her charming eyes slightly and smiled mischievously. "What 3 words? Little naughty." Dmo Xian's tone was full of pampering. Perhaps the laughter of the two of them stung Xianmu. When the black-robed man pointed out a group of corpse puppets, Xianmu suddenly rushed towards the black-robed man. He grabbed the black-robed man tightly with both hands. The black-robed man frowned sinisterly and wanted to shake him off. Xianmu said in a trembling voice, There's someone, hurry, call someone, get lost." The black-robed man was annoyed by his stuttering. The black-robed man pushed Xianmu away impatiently. "I don't like you." "What? Old elephant can't satisfy you and now you're seducing me when he's not around?" "Oh, I'm not interested in a tender young lad like you." The black-robed man's mouth was full of disdain. "These are the corpse puppets you want, hurry up and take them away, don't dirty my eyes." Xianmu's eyes turned red after being rebutted. Since he followed old elephant Saint Law, he had not suffered too much grievance. Moreover, no one would point fingers at him or humiliate him in front of him. Xianmu was very clear. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo who were hiding behind the stone door must have heard his words. With Yiqing Luo's vicious temper, she would not let him off. The more anxious he was, the angrier he was. The more he spoke, the more he stammered. It was impossible to hear what he was saying. The black-robed man who was annoyed directly controlled the corpse puppet and walked towards the direction of Xianmu. The rotten smell of the defective corpse puppets had yet to be dispelled. There were still bits of rotten flesh falling off his body. Xianmu was frightened and quickly retreated. He staggered and fell to the ground. The black-robed man burst into laughter. "Haha, I really don't know what old elephant likes about you. Is it your kung fu in that aspect? I'd like to see how you're going to bring these puppets out." Xianmu was ashamed and annoyed. He struggled on the ground trying to get up and run away. But suddenly he clutched his chest. His face contorted. He curled up on the ground. The black-robed man was slightly startled by Xianmu's sudden change. "Hey, pretty boy, don't play any tricks." "Oh." Xianmu groaned, his body twisted into a ball and trembled non-stop. The black-robed man furrowed his brows. This gigolo was the person whom Captain Elephant loved dearly. Something really happened to him. Perhaps Captain Elephant would blame it on him. The black-robed man ordered the corpse puppets to stop and quickly stepped forward to support Xianmu. Chapter 32:11. Don't worry about how to bring these corpse puppets out. There was even a hint of a smile in that voice. Leave these undead corpse puppets to us. The black-robed man paused, raised his head abruptly and looked towards the direction of the voice. Who is it? At the stone door, 2 figures walked in slowly. The young lady's red dress was like fire, enchanting like a painting as if she was stepping on the flame, her beauty made one sink into it. The man's purple robe billowed, peerless, like a god, with an extraordinary temperament that made one sink into it. This pair of golden boy and jade girl standing together was simply too pleasing to the eyes. But now was not the time to be pleasing to the eyes. The black-robed man shouted in shock. Who are you people? Yiqing Luo smiled extremely brilliantly. We are the people who will end you. The black-robed man lowered his head and looked at Xianmu who was lying limp at his feet, lifted his leg suddenly and kicked him. Is it you? You brought them in. Xianmu was poisoned by the poisonous pill, his internal organs were in pain. And by the black-robed man's angry kick. He coughed out a big mouthful of blood. No, it's them. Xianmu wanted to explain, but his throat was full of blood, stimulated and unable to spit out a complete sentence. It doesn't matter who brought us in. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. What's important is you. You will disappear together with this secret chamber. The black-robed man suddenly retreated, called the corpse puppets by the side, and rushed towards Yiqing Luo. Bam! Dmo Xian's sleeves waved, a wave of profound wave dispersed the yin qi in the air. That wave, like ripples, spread out circle after circle. Everywhere it went, The corpse puppets all fell to the ground. This powerful force made the black-robed man extremely shocked. He tried his best to restrain his inner fear. Don't waste your energy. These corpse puppets are unbeatable. The black-robed man roared as he dodged into the corpse puppets. But, the next moment, he was not only shocked, he was completely dumbstruck and his heart was filled with fear. Because, the corpse puppets that fell to the ground had no intention of getting up. No, this was impossible. The black-robed man widened his eyes and waved his arm. Another dozen or so corpse puppets swarmed forward. This time, Dmo Xian didn't even move his sleeves. The Xian wave in the air had already sliced those corpse puppets into two. Dong dong dong. The undead corpse puppets fell to the ground. The black-robed man widened his eyes and stared at the undead puppet on the ground. He did not stand up. The undead corpse puppet did not stand up again. What was going on? Aren't undead corpse puppets immortal? Impervious to swords and spears and impervious to fire and water. Who was that man? It could be seen that he hadn't even used his full strength. He hadn't even used his full strength, but he was already this powerful. If they were to really fight, all the undead corpse puppets in the secret chamber might not be a match for him. The black-robed man was incomparably appalled as he stared at Dmo Xian with a gaze filled with fear. Besides the 10-plus profounders who were still refining corpses and puppets, the entire chamber was filled with countless profounders. He was the only one left in charge of the undead puppets. He had to spread the news of the secret chamber being invaded. The black-robed man's eyeballs turned and his vision suddenly fell onto Yiqing Luo. Looking at that young lady, she had been hiding behind the man. She looked young and extremely delicate. That man couldn't move. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.